Okay. Um, Jill, did you try logging on twice or something? Because it says that you are still in the waiting room and joining.
Yeah, I tried to log in and then I got an error message, and so I closed out and tried to log in again. So I guess the error message.
Can't
I'm
do
only on
anything
one
with you there.
device.
It's fine. It's fine. As long
Okay.
as you are good, I don't care. Whatever. I just wanted to make sure you were okay. So
Yeah,
all right.
I'm fine. I'm here.
Okay. All right. So the validation shift takes many, many different forms. I mean, let's get real. This is true with every shift. You guys, I have people who I'm talking to about this stuff who make $1 million a year. And we just like the examples are just different, but the shift is the same, right? So this is why you guys' examples and your specifics make it more useful for you. But the validation shift, I think, is one of those where like you can start to notice it on like a very big level where it's like, oh, I'm being validated by people clicking like on social media, right? Or some of the examples that are actually in the lessons. But then it also comes into play, like I said in my post in the group, where it's like, are you trying to convince people to work with you? And I don't mean like, are you doing that gross schemy thing where you're like trying to force people? It's not that. It's like, are you coming at your customers from a place of you need me or else, right? Or are you rather talking to people who already know that they need you? Are you rather talking to people who already know that they need help with what it is you do? Are you already talking to people who have decided that they want to invest in the type of work you do, and now it's just a matter of them verifying that you are the person to help them do it, right? So there's a huge continuum for the validation shift that encompasses a lot of life. And it is in some ways closely related to the inspiration shift, because if you are the kind of person who feels really good when other people kind of give you props for being responsible or doing the right thing, it is easy to kind of cajole yourself into doing things you don't really want to be doing because you can continue getting the positive validation and feedback from others, right? So there's kind of my brief intro. How did this one sit with you? How are you doing in general? Where is your head at on any or all of the things? If you are an OG prep worker, like, does it land differently now than it used to? Any or all?
I noticed just getting to the end of these shifts that each shift shook what I thought I knew from the shift before. So now I think I just need to go back to the beginning because I thought, oh, I got this shift. I'm like, no, wait a minute. It just totally unvalidated the shift before. So it shifted the prior shifts. So
If it's any consolation, a lot of people who've been through several rounds nodded when you said that about just go through again. I mean, I come back to this. Like I come back to these tools. I do it very quickly for myself now, right? But there are times where I'm like, ooh, I can tell that I'm not really sure what it is I want here. And then I need to go back to the seeking shift. Ooh, I can tell that like this is kind of BS, that I'm not making any steps forward because I don't think I know what I want, right? Whatever. This all happens to me, right? It doesn't go away. It's just that you know which tool to pull out when. Um, Marsha, are you saying that about starting with the honesty shift? Because I made that comment about how I thought about putting the honesty shift at the beginning.
Actually, I haven't got a chance to watch the replay.
Oh,
But
okay.
in
It's kinda funny you said
previous sessions, I think you've made that same comment, and I've also watched the honesty, and I'm being like, oh, I should probably start with this, but I see why I wasn't ready to.
It, where you guys are best suited to start is probably individual. I started with the inspiration shift because if you're not going through the material for the right reason, it's going to be really hard to go through the material, right? So that's why the inspiration shift was first, because I was like, if people are shooting themselves through prep work, they're not even going to make it through prep work, right? So that's why that one was first. But once you've kind of been through it, what, like, each of you probably has one that's harder for you than others, right? And one that you need to pay more attention to. So if you have the hunch that, like, do I need to start with the honesty shift? You probably do, right? Is there something specific that you're thinking about, or do you want to talk through like where you should start for some particular reason? Or were you asking more generally?
Me?
Yes, you. Sorry.
No, I was just more reflecting on going through this process. And another thing I would also probably say is, like you're saying, you need to go through it each time, and probably each time a different one is the where to start. That is just the honesty shift always kind of sticks out to me as like I guess a place for real potential of big growth.
It is, because the honesty shift is the one that creates the most awareness for most people. For most, like, the honesty shift is the one that like shines light in dark corners, right? Which is why it makes most people kind of squeamish. But to your point, like, that's also then where the big growth can happen. But also, you have to know if you have the capacity for that right now, right? So if that feels too big, don't start there. That's true for any of these, right? If it feels bad overwhelming, or like bad triggering, no, don't start there. Then go where then where is it that we talk about path of least resistance? I think in the engagement shift, right? Like, just go do the thing you can do right now. There's what is ideal, and then there's what you can do right now. If you have to choose between the two, always take what you can do right now. Okay. Kimberly, how are you doing with, like, feeling like you need to go? Like, are you okay? I feel like you need a general like check-in. Feeling like you need to go backwards on the shifts is normal, but I want to make sure you're okay.
Yeah, after the honesty shift, I felt like I needed just to go back to the beginning. And then I got to the validation shift, and I realized a while ago I was like going to like all these people, double checking my ideas to make sure I was doing the right thing. So I cut that out. So now I like really don't ask anybody anything. I just then now I feel like I'm floundering. So,
Yeah,
but
same thing there. There's like, some people have said this to me, like, oh, but like, I know, like, I'm just trying to get kudos here, right? And to Jill's point, right? It's not bad to seek feedback. But the question there is like, why? Right? Are you looking for somebody else to give you their blessing on the thing? Because like, oh, well, then it's good. Yeah, most of you have heard my example of like when I spent however much it was, 16, 17, 48,000, I don't know. I spent a lot on a mastermind, right? And I was like early in my business, and I went to my husband and I was like, because we were using like our money, right? It wasn't like money that was in the business or anything. The business was not a business. Let's get real. Okay. And so I'm asking him, I'm like, can I spend our money on this? And he was like, I mean, it's a lot of money, but if you think it's what you need, fine, whatever. Right. But then like I kind of kept pushing, right? And finally he was like, I'm not taking responsibility for this decision, right? He's like, this is on you. Like, if it tanks, that's not on me. And if it goes really well, you need to feel good about yourself, right? And so he's a smart guy. I'm married. But like, that's a matter of knowing, why are you going to somebody? What are you looking for from that person? Are you truly just like, hey, you know more about me than this, and I can take or leave your feedback and I'm good? Or is it like, actually, I need you to be partially responsible for this choice with me, so that if it goes down the crapper, I can say, well, but so-and-so thought that it was a good idea, and apparently now we both suck, right? If there are all kinds of reasons, right? Why we go looking for feedback. If you don't need it, then you're free to go seek it out. That's fine. But if you feel like you need it, then maybe question that again. It's the same with you guys. It's the same in like friendships or familial relationships. If you just enjoy somebody's company, if you just I will text my husband and be like, I need you to say blankety blank, and he will copy paste that shit right back to me, right? But like, this is part of how he learned what it is I wanted and needed. And it was me advocating for myself, but also like, I'm okay if he doesn't do it. It's just that I want it. Like, it makes me feel better. I enjoy hearing and experiencing certain things. So it's about understanding that you don't need something, but that doesn't mean that you can't want it and go get it for yourself. Right? How are you all doing?
Yeah, I noticed a couple things when I was going through this stuff last night, like with my hydro, the rowing machine, it's got an app and it does it on the machine too. So you can't actually turn it off, but it's got like the dots for the days active, and it doesn't matter whether it's rowing or the yoga or whatever. But like, so it's like the thing about like, turning off all those apps and stuff. And I'm like, well, like, actually can't because it's part of the machine. But I'm like, actually, the way I see it is more like that's reflecting back like how I already feel about having done it. So I think that's, not a bad thing in the sense that I'm not doing it just for the dot. I mean, like occasionally, but it's almost like a reminder. It's like there'll be like, get to like 10 o'clock and I go, oh, I haven't done my workout yet. And I actually do want to do that. So it's kind of a spur in that sense. But then with the art stuff, like there's a friend that I talk to like constantly almost every day, and we're always like firing art back and stuff at each other for critique, and just like, because you get too close to it and you can't tell what looks good anymore and stuff like that. But I realize that there's that, but then there's also sometimes when I'll send her something and I know it's good and I just want her validation that oh my god, look at this thing I just came up with. So it's like that fine line between, yes, I actually do need feedback, so I'm literally too close to it and I can't tell anymore what's working, versus like, oh, I made a cool thing and I want you to tell me it's a cool thing.
So, and even this is a good example, right? Because there's nothing wrong with being like, I just made some cool shit. Go ahead, you can tell me. It's cool, right? That's fine. But like, if you know that, and if they came back to you and were like, yeah, oh no. And you were still like, no, sorry, this is cool. Right. And you'd be like, I'm just going to the next person now who will tell me that this is cool. Fine, fine. Right. The with the rower and your point that like, oh, it's just a reminder, like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do. Right. This is helping me remember that this is something I am committed to and something that I care about. Then it's just a matter of like, it's a reminder. This is where we go back to the inspiration shift, where it's like, if you, this was one of the first things I said in the very first call. There are people who exercise and they can't imagine not doing it because they would crap all over themselves for not doing it. When it no longer becomes a choice, that's when it's problematic. So if your app or the email reminders or the dings on your phone or whatever, if that helps you to show up in a way that you wanted to anyways, cool, that's fine. But if you couldn't say no to it because you got the email notification, or because you're going to break your train of, your chain of days in a row or something, or you would feel a certain way if all of a sudden it was broken because something happened and you needed to break the chain, that's when you know you got a problem. I use problem kind of loosely there.
Yeah, like there is actually one missing dot from when I was in a hotel and the Wi-Fi cut out partway through, so it didn't register that I'd done it. And it's good. I mean, it's like I look at it and I go, okay, well, I know I actually did do the workout and it's fine. And it was actually a hysterical workout. I was face down on the yoga mat crying because the two instructors were harassing each other the whole class, and it was hilarious. But I'm like, I know I did it. It's just annoying seeing that little gap. But I mean, it's not like anything bad about me or like, oh, I should have checked. It's like, it's fine.
Yes.
Bye, Jill.
Okay. Diane said, I think entrepreneurs working alone sometimes just need the good job from our community. And same thing there, right? Like, is it that you need a community and you need somebody who understands what you're doing to like acknowledge what you're doing? Fine. Right? Because your partner doesn't get it and you like don't want to explain it all and fine. Quick note on that. Something that many of you have probably heard me say before is like, know who you can get what from. Some of you have the problem of like, you keep going back to somebody, moms, dads, partners. And because like we have ideas about how these people should show up. Moms, dads, partners are the big three. Like you, we have very concrete ideas about like, this is what a dad is. This is what a mom is. This is how a partner shows up. Like the partner stuff is largely informed by Disney, which is really unfortunate, right? And the mom and dad stuff is like really, really codependent 9 out of 10 times, right? And so if you can't get what it like, don't keep knocking on a door that isn't opening, you guys. Go get what it is you need from whoever will give it to you. And the self-worth piece that some of you will have to work on is like, will I let myself ask for that from somebody else? Right? Will I let myself pay somebody for that? I have clients who I've worked with for years, and they 1 or 2 or 3 years into us working together, we're like, Jess, I had to get over the shit of the idea that like I'm paying for a friend. Because some of them just talk to me like they just verbal diarrhea, right? And they just spew and they're like, I just need somebody to hear me. And they had to get over the idea that like they should have found somebody else for that. Or they should have, or their partner should be able to do that, or they should be able to pick up the phone and go, yo, mom, and she should be caring and receptive and unconditional, and she's not. She's just not. So they pay me, right? And that is, but like, will you allow yourself to go get what it is you need rather than having the expectation that somebody else can give you that?
Jess, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Because I was talking with a colleague this morning and she mentioned something about work that she was doing. And I said, oh, yeah, I understand. And she was like, yes. And it was like that mutual validation. And it was that tribal kind of thing. We're both entrepreneurs. We both get, and you know, she has another job for her regular life, and people just don't understand what she's talking about. So when we're looking for some of that validation that we get from our community, I mean, I think as human animals, we all need that community, right? And
Yes,
so
yes.
what is pathologic needing of, you know, the validation, and what is that whole feel good, you know, having community, especially as solo entrepreneurs, like we're, you know, lonely in our offices maybe, or we're coming up with ideas and we just need kind of like that, a little bounce back almost.
So it's a few things. It's, is it just bounce back, right? Like, there's a few components to what you just said. One was like somebody holding space for you. Some of you are surrounded by people who cannot hold space for you. And you literally just need somebody to hear you and smile and nod. This is something I had to teach my husband. I'm like, this is one of those times where you just smile and nod, right? And like, no comments back, no questions. I will spoon feed you the question if I want you to ask me a question, right? So some of you just don't have space. You need a space. Every human needs that. Then there's the bounce back, right? Some of you, in terms of like how you process, your verbal processors, you just need somebody to hear your idea. And then like halfway through, I have friends that send me 15-minute messages, and at the end of it, they're like, thanks, Jess, this was really helpful, right? And I did nothing, right? But some of you just need a person to ask a semi-intelligent question back, right? And then in teasing it out, you're like, oh, now I'm good, right? So to your question about like, where's the line, right? One of the lines is, do I need this or do I want this? So need is like that desperation, like I've got to have this or I'm going to feel shitty, as opposed to I want this, and if you can't give it to me, then I'm going to go get it elsewhere, right? So a want is like something that you feel like you deserve, something that you know you want, right? Whereas a need is often tied to like entitlement. I'm married to you, Bucky. You better like show up for me here. I put up with your shit, you put up with mine, right? Like it's entitlement often, or it's like I won't be okay if this person doesn't respond in a certain way, right? So if you can bounce ideas off of another person and you're okay with like their feedback not quite sitting the right way, or like it wasn't a super productive conversation and you're like, whatever, that's okay, right? Those are kind of signs that like you're okay. Trying to think what else. Some of it is like, you guys, most of what we do here comes back to what is the underlying motivation. Are you trying to get something specific out of that person, or do you just value their feedback? If you're trying to get something specific from them, then like, did you actually ask for that? Were you upfront and like, hey, this is what I need right now? Or were you like trying to hint at it and hoping that they would catch the hint, and then they didn't and you became slightly resentful, and then, you know, that kind of thing. what's the underlying motivation for you going? If you just need to be heard, fine, then go somewhere where you can be heard, right? Does that help, Diane? That concrete enough?
Yeah, I mean, I think I have a good sense of what I need versus what I want. And I completely agree with you. It's sometimes a question of that entitlement versus, you just need a little something and then you can move on. Like you're good with it. So yeah, I wanted just to clarify between the pathologic and the building community, because building community is what I do in my business. I really try to foster that experience, not because I want people to be dependent upon each other, but I want them to feel like they get something great when they are part of my community and when they work with me, that I'll give them what they need, but also they'll get that from their cohort, especially because what I work with is so highly personal. And so, I just wanted to kind of make sure that I'm not fostering that sort of codependent, symbiotic, pathologic experience. But
yeah, mostly there, look for like, are people okay even if they don't get the reaction or response that they're expecting, right? So sometimes my friends will respond to something I say or do in a way that I wasn't quite expecting, but there's a deep underlying trust there that like they can say whatever they want, whatever is true for them, and I'm okay with it. And that like I'm going to do with that whatever is true and best for me, right? It becomes codependent when it's like, I'm holding myself back because I'm not exactly sure how you're going to react to this, but you're clearly fishing for something specific. And so like, right. That's when we end up in like these unhealthy spirals.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Would some of that apply towards like getting a paying client? And if and the client actually comes back?
Say more.
Well, I mean, it's like, when do you know that if someone actually pays you for what you do, if it's actually a feeling of validation or just a feeling of like accomplishment?
It can be both, right? There's nothing wrong with, I mean, you guys, somebody paying you for what it is you do is validation that they value it enough to pay you. That's just true, right? The real question is like, do you need them to pay you and in order for you to feel like you're doing a good job? Do you need them to like say or do certain things to be self-assured that like this is what I enjoy and this is how I'm good at showing up, that kind of thing, right? So it's more a matter of like, how are you affected by them paying you? How are you affected by how it is they respond, right? I've had people be like, nobody really like says anything about my work. And I'm like, have you ever asked? And they're like, well, no, but like, shouldn't they just kind of like say they're happy with it if they are? And I'm like, maybe not, like maybe go find out, right? That's like the fishing. If you feel like you are fishing for a reaction or a response, you guys, that is a clear sign that you're not self-validating first, right? Because you would rather go fishing for other people to give you what you need than figure out how to give it to you yourself. And that doesn't mean that it doesn't feel good or that we don't also need it from other people, but it's really different to like go fishing for it. Alana, do you say your name, Alana? Yes. Okay. I just realized, I was like looking at it and I was like, have I actually said your name?
No,
Okay.
I haven't spoken, so that's probably
Okay.
why.
So I like paused my chat box at your comment because you said this a while ago and I didn't want to lose it. She said, I've noticed my validation is wildly different in personal and professional life. This is true for many of you, by the way. Personal, I'm good. I'm in a good spot. Thanksgiving was a good example of this. Professionally, I'm still very much like, who's in charge of me?
Big time. Yes, I think personal wise, like mom, dad, partner stuff, I've worked out in years of therapy, etc. But professionally, I find I do need things where like prep work is great because I have the little mark as complete and there's the checklist and I'm on it and I'm like, uh-oh, I better be ready for this call. And so since I work for myself, it's nice to have that accountability. And also I think validation comes out of that. And as I was watching the videos that popped out at me, I'm like, oh, I do have a lot of these apps and I'm in a lot of these groups. Because what if I was left to my own devices? Who would manage me? So it was interesting and also, I think just a little eye-opening as far as my clients give me validation in the form of feedback and money. But I'm not at the point where I'm like, okay to give it to myself yet.
What's the difference between your clients giving it to you and like what it is you can't give to yourself?
I kind of feel like it's my older life as like working in a company where I had titles and I would move up and get those carrots. And now there's like, it's just me. So when is it enough? Who tells me that?
Yeah.
And I don't know. The difference.
Yes. You bring up a really good point, right? Because school and corporate are all set up like, I am in charge of you and I will decide when you get to move on, right? And those are environments that are very much set up like, I know better than you when you are ready to move on. And hang on, now I should actually keep scrolling now because my message count is piling up here. Okay. Now we're talking about, okay, great. I missed all kinds of things. It is different because like when you are in charge of you, you're absolutely right. Like when is enough enough? This happens to entrepreneurs that end up on the hamster wheel. If they're only validated by the money they make, except as an entrepreneur, there's literally infinity money that you could be making. It, like you could go forever and ever and ever. And then you too could board a rocket and blast off into space, right? I'm like, so how do you know when enough is enough? Well, that means you have to decide that for yourself. So you have to become like the governing body of you, right? In terms of like, I'll just say the example. I know many of you have also heard my, I hired a sales coach for $3,000 because I thought that what I wasn't good at was sales type of thing. This is a really good example of working with your shit. So I hired a sales coach because I was convinced the thing I'm not good at is sales. And this was a person who I respected. You could say that like this person was above me, right, in this area. right? That I perceived that this person really had their stuff together and this was somebody that like I would have taken the stamp of approval from. Okay. And so I pay this person, and it turns out that what I get out of this whole experience is this stamp that basically says, you already knew what you were doing, just go do the damn thing. Right. And, but that was enough. That was enough. So this is one of those examples where like, yeah, in terms of like the validation shift, I totally failed, but it was a shortcut. I paid somebody $3,000 to have them bestow upon me like the, yes, you are good at sales. Yes, you can do this stamp. And so sometimes the answer is going to be go get what you need. Like I said earlier, if you having, it's like my clients paying me to be their friend, any of this, right? Yes, I'm just going to stamp you guys. I'll get you all wax seals and come through. Like if getting something will enable you to move forward, then go get the thing, right? And you can know that you have some shit around it, but the goal is not removal of all shit forever and ever. Like that's not a thing. That's why there is no actual prep work diploma. That's why you can sit in this program for 3 years and still be learning new things or understanding yourself differently, right? So the goal is not like, oh, I never need to make this shift again, because that's actually not possible. It's more about like, how do I move forward? And sometimes you're going to notice the thing that's stopping me from moving forward is that I keep fishing for other people's opinions. Well, then maybe you need to go do some validation shift stuff. But if you can buy your way out of the validation shift, there's also nothing wrong with that. If getting somebody to stamp you on the head that you are good at this and you can do this gets you moving, then do it, right? This is a big part of being a beer, is that you will not see yourself, or you will not allow yourself to take action until you see yourself as the kind of person who does what. Well, how do you know that? How do you know that you're good at sales? How do you know that you're good at what you do? It probably means you're going to need to experience the results that you can create for somebody, which may mean you need to work for free or cheap to get your sea legs there. It may mean that somebody who you respect needs to sign off on your work, right? But in some way, you're going to need that feedback of like, yes, you are good. You are this kind of person. Oh, Mason. Mason said, I don't trust myself to take care of myself. And I'm tearing up at work. Also, we don't allow LOLs on the back end of like, and now I'm crying. Just for the record. It's not funny, it's sad. Fundamentally, that is what the validation shift is about, is do you trust yourself to take care of yourself? Do you trust yourself to go get what you need? Right? Mason said, but I have to downplay my feelings, or maybe not. This is why we don't allow the LOLs on the end. Though at work, I'll give you a pass to save face. It's fine. Dana is here for all your astrological needs. That is outside of my zone of genius. Alana, are you, how does any or all of this sit with you?
I think that was so funny because I'm like not trying to look for it, but then I need it. But then I think I just got it from myself as you were talking. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Same thing, yeah.
Some of you need to just experience
You know
the
what? If
power of your work or the power of whatever it is you're doing. In the same way that some of you are uncomfortable with sadness and you minimize it, Mason, like I'm not picking on you here because more than one person has done this in prep work or any other call I've been on, where they're like crying and then they start laughing and I'm like, that's not actually funny. That's actually sucky. So it's not you. But in the same way, some people are uncomfortable with those feelings. Some of you are uncomfortable with how good you are at something, with how powerful you are, with how good things are going. Some of you are uncomfortable with how successful you could be if you just got out your own damn way, right? So practicing acknowledging for yourself, like, ooh, that was good. Ooh, I just showed up in a way that I enjoy. Ooh, I just really did something good there for that person. Ooh, this just happened because I helped. Some of you need to like practice seeing that you are the cause that creates some kind of effect. It's not just magic that certain things happen. Like you are also something that works, something that is good at what they do, something that is creating something good. Arlene said, I find a lot of this comes back to agency and believing / trusting you have it. Yes. Like the big things in prep work. Momentum, choice. How do we build momentum? By acknowledging where it is we have choices for ourselves and acknowledging what it is we could do. But you also have agency to feel good about yourself. It does feel good to get kudos from other people. It can be cool to like, I don't know, do something for 50 days straight. But then like, are you proud of you because you just did something cool that you wanted to do? Or are you proud of you because like there were cool effects on the screen? And now, you know, the developers are like, oh, there's another person who went 50 days in a row. This is, I was sitting here and I was like, practically speaking, how does one practice validating themselves? How you do that, at least in part, is lead goals, which seems like a wild tangent, but there's two ways to do this. You can do it proactively. So like, I want this, and here's how I'm willing to show up. Here are the things I'm willing to do. Here are the things I'm willing to try in order to get this result that I want for myself. And then you get to be proud of yourself. You get to feel good. You get to validate yourself for showing up for yourself. And I know, I'm 99% sure I said it in there, that like your lead goal could be like, I want to be closer to my partner, so I'm going to make sure that we have a 2-minute hug every day. That's a lead goal. Don't overcomplicate this. It's like, not everything needs to be a SMART goal, okay? Death to the SMART goal. Just no, those are bullshit. Like, fight me, okay? There are not many things that I'm just, no. Some of you need to do this retroactively though. And it'll be harder to do because for some of you, you haven't hit your lag goal, but that doesn't mean that you didn't try shit. There's somebody in prep work, lives in Australia. This is not a conducive time for our poor Aussies. But Daphna's been part of prep work for a long time. And one of the rounds, she I won't get all the details right about this. She launched some workshop or something and she tried to sell it and she kept trying different things. And what came of it is that she sold 0. Right. And I was inordinately excited about this because she pushed and got a result of 0. She did all kinds of things and kept showing up. And so I was like, I get that you would have loved a different result. For many of you, this is true. You're like, I would love to already, whatever, be making X dollars. I would already love to be out of corporate. I would love to have this many clients. That's fine. But the real question is what have you been doing to make that happen? And if you're showing up, if you are doing things, by the way, learning is not doing a thing. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Also, I love you and I believe in this work, but coming to prep work calls is not doing a thing. Okay, just gonna throw that out there. What are you doing to get the result that you want, right? And if you are doing things for it, then you get that satisfaction of validating yourself. Arlene has collected diplomas of not doing the work.
Instead of doing the work, I have diplomas, yes. But it kind of reminds me of what you were talking about. I think it was right back in the inspiration shift about the difference between, was it visions and fantasies? And you were talking about vision boards. And it's just well, is it something that you want and are prepared to take a step towards, or is it some kind of much more abstract, well, wouldn't this be cool, but you don't really know how it's going to fit into your life or anything, or what it's going to do for you?
Yes. Or you haven't actually decided that you really want it and feel worthy of going for it. How are you all? I feel like this one took an unexpectedly heavy turn, which is fine. Yeah, so I mean, Dana brings up a good point. And she said, I remember the one time I did a vision board, everything happened on it over the next few years, but it's because I did the damn work. Shocker. You will allow yourself to do the work if you feel like you deserve what is on there. If you have really chosen the thing that is on there and you feel like you deserve it, and it's not just oh, here's a thing I bumped into that could be kind of cool, why not? Right? and you actually want it, then here's the other thing. Ideally, doing the work will be almost, I shouldn't say almost, it will be as satisfying as getting the thing. Some of you have sat through like times that I've done workshops or things on like sales, and something I talk about is that, nope, I totally lost it. That just went out my head. I like looked at the chat and it, the thought just like evaporated. Thanks. Where was I going with that? Fantasy. I don't know. It'll come back maybe if it was important. It's fine. Okay. I need to go soon. Something I am curious about is how you feel about next year. Are you planning? Do you plan? Does that still feel good? Do goals feel good for you? Or are they like, no, I don't set goals, right? Do you set goals, but you're like, what's actually the point of this? These are all viable options. I'm curious about that. I'm curious how you feel about money, right? So those things are often tied together, but if you have particular things, or even not particular things, let's get real. Then pop it into the group. I may see if I can do another call. I need to look when that would be. But I'd like to at least, actually I could do it next week. If you guys have specific things around like money, planning for next year, that type of thing that you want to talk about, we could talk about it then. And then it's kind of a matter of like, I can point you in a direction like, oh, okay, this sounds like a inspiration shift thing. Oh, this sounds like an honesty shift thing, right? So that you have a path forward. I don't like sending people off just like, and bye. See you in 6 months when we revisit. So think that through. If you have something, drop it in the group. And then I'll see in terms of timing what makes sense to do. Okay. Also, I know we had to cut this short. So if you have validation shifty type of questions, lead goal, lag goal stuff is very concrete. It's a really good place to ask questions. If you have them, drop them in the group as well. Okay. All right. I hope you all have a lovely week. I will send out an email or let you somehow know. Tentatively plan on next week, same time, same place. Okay. See you later. Bye, guys.